Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers, sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy Mingus, South Florida. And today's date is Thursday, April 26, 2018. Well, it's warm in Fort Lauderdale. Nice little breeze, which is nice. And I'm at Stash, located at 109 Southwest 2nd Avenue, along within the Himmershey district of Fort Lauderdale, adjacent with Revolution Live and America's Backyard. Yeah, I've just been chilling, reading, walking around. I like to hike around a lot. Good energy keeps the body moving. And mingling with individuals everywhere I go. Honorable discussions, no screaming or yelling. Waste of energy in that aspect. Yeah, I was just checking on a couple things. And I remember this, of course, the New York Post, many other newspapers gave this, talking about this person went to some bar, West Village, it's called, in New York, because he wore a Donald Trump hat and he got kicked out. He wanted to sue. But actually they favored the bar on property rights. Well, it's nothing really new. You have to expect that. And a place like that is doing me a favor. Don't go. It's like, hey, I want to hang out with a bunch of cows and sheep. Let's don't go to West Village where the herd conformity is at. Moo. Yeah, they don't want to think alike and smell the same, right? Higher standards. Oh, man. I remember one girl said that during spring break at the pizza joint. From New York, we have higher standards. And don't get me wrong, there's some great, beautiful, awesome people that live in that area. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, so I always look at the pros and cons, but it just makes me laugh when I read stuff about it. Wow. Amazing world. It's like even up in New York too, in Milo with the Yapanos, who's gay and Jewish descent. Everyone call him leave Nazi scum. Same place in New York. So they all go, we are Scotland communist sympathizers. We want the government to depend on. We want them to clean our rear ends because we can't do it ourselves because we have higher standards. Well, it goes on and on and on. Wow. So I'm going to be talking a few areas. One is interesting article about Rotherham division in Yorkshire. Big scandal, sex scandal happening. It looks like it's been occurring for a long period of time, according to Wikipedia. Just, I call them cliff notes. You gotta go further than that, but that's a good start. I'll just take their word for it, go a little bit further. But I remembered even reading about it too, like 20 years ago. These sex scandals in England and Europe and parts of the world, including the United States. And David Icke talks about it as well. So they all called him a nut job back then, right? Surprise, surprise. And you don't have to agree with him on everything, but always go further. And one thing I'll give him credit for, a lot of his books he writes, he always used the sources so you folks can look at yourselves. Go, take the initiative, and do your research and make your own decision. Even the late William Cooper said the same thing on his show, Hour of the Time, when he stated, don't take my word for it. Do your own research and make a profound decision. And even though William Cooper called Mr. Icke a fraud and all that, however, as long as it has merit, I will commend it. This is why I always say, focus on the information rather than the person. Look at Alex Jones, for an example. According to the court papers, there's a custody battle with his ex-wife in Texas. They said his show is considered entertainment. An entertainer, the way he does things. And sometimes his exhibition could be acidine. However, he's a human lightning rod. So you gotta look at the pros and cons. Don't look, like I said, don't look at this person as your Lord and Savior. Just focus on the information and go further. Now you got the internet, you got that opportunity a lot easier access to get this hidden knowledge, which they didn't want to release in the past. But yeah, like I said, focus on the information, never the person, including myself. Even listen to my show, go further, share stuff with me, don't be shy. And I get some good comments on YouTube as well, and I do appreciate it. You know, agree, disagree is fine. Honorable discussions are great. Yeah, so it looks like some customers are having fun. And yeah, so enough of my rhetoric. We'll just hit here on the Rotherham scandal. Rotherham scandal, watchdog reveals 98 investigations into police. I know they had one too on Mail Online. Independent Office for Police Conduct. This is from The Guardian, and I'll repeat myself. And it says here, independent officer for police conduct says number of cases has grown by 36 in a year. And as it reads here, who wrote this? Francis Perrotin, North of England reporter. Came out yesterday. So it says here the number of investigations in response by police to allegations of child sexual abuse in Rotherham has increased to nearly 100. The police watchdog has said. The Independent Office for Police Conduct, or ANCRM, IOPC, said on Wednesday at the beginning of April it was overseeing 98 investigations into the response of South Yorkshire Police compared with 62 at the same point last year. IOPC said 45 of those inquiries have been completed and 33 current and former police officers were still being investigated. The pub will publish an overreaching report since Operation Linden, which is examining allegations of misconduct by police in relation to child sexual exploitation in Rotherham, has concluded. Wow, so you can say here, a lot of deceived delegates, I would say, governmental delegates in that area. The watchdog confirmed that some of the completed investigations has identified potential misconduct by officers, but said the outcomes of individual investigations will not be made public until the final report was published. As an investigation by the Times in 2012 found that gang rape and trafficking were widespread in Rotherham. A subsequent report in 2014 by Professor Alexis J., a former chief inspector of social work, concluded that failures of political and police leadership had contributed to the sexual exploitation of 1,400 children by groups of Asian men in the town over 16 years. J. concluded that police gave no priority to child sexual abuse, regarded many victims with a contempt, and failed to act on their reports of abuse. The 98 Operation Linden investigations include an inquiry into whether the former South Yorkshire Police and Crime Commissioner Sean Wright lied under oath when giving evidence to the Home Affairs Selected Committee in 2014. Wright told MPs he had not been aware that child sexual exploitation was a significant problem during the time during his time as head of Rotherham's Children's Services. The increase in the number of investigations under Operation Linden is a result of new complaints being received and decisions to split some investigations to make them more manageable. Steve Noonan, acting deputy director of major investigations at the IOPC, said, "We are supporting 53 survivors and a number of complaints through a very difficult period, where they are also being asked to give evidence to the National Crime Agency to support their investigations into the terrible crimes committed in Rotherham. We would like to thank the survivors and everyone affected by our investigations for their patience and cooperation while we continue with this very important work. Operation Linden is the second largest independent investigation the IOPC has carried out after its inquiry into Yorkshire Police's conduct over the Hillsborough disaster. The operation has a dedicated team of 35 staff who have analyzed more than 15,000 documents and pieces of evidence, some of which date to the 1990s. The time frames involved are very challenging. In a significant number of cases, we are unable to identify the officers involved, Noonan said. However, even where we've been unable to identify officers, we will still conclude our investigations to see if any conduct of or learning can be identified. We will publish an overarching report combining the outcome of our investigations when they are all complete. Our aim is to not only highlight any conduct matters relating to the individual officers, but crucially to share our understanding of why such serious allegations often weren't investigated, and this can be avoided in the future. Ultimately, we want those affected to be confident that their complaints have been comprehensively investigated, and for South Yorkshire Police and indeed all forces across the country to learn from our findings. Interesting stuff indeed. So, advertising all that, this is really insane what is happening. So, and there, of course, there's plenty of links to check out on this area. Independent officers, police conduct. And I'm going to add another link here, too, with the Mail Online. Came out yesterday as well. Very similar, but they have some video footage in here, too. So it's all the same, but I'm going to add this. They have some video reports on this, and it's very disturbing. And of course, according to them, to the Daily Mail, South Yorkshire Police invited the National Crime Agency to investigate the CSE committed in Rotherham between 1997 to 2013. So it's very, wow. So Child Agency investigated child sex exploitation in Rotherham. So there's videos on that, and it's really disturbing with these children being exploited, and it really gets my goat, to be exact, because these are innocent people. Piracy could be involved as well from England, which is happening almost around the world. That's mainly in coastal international cities. You could say South Florida's international region, or Miami, like New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, even areas in Tokyo, London. And this stuff is happening. So so I'm just wondering if those in office, particular officers being investigated, they say 33, who's paying them to keep their mouth shut? That's one question the brothers and sisters in Great Britain has to ask. Call these SOBs out, and anyone that's involved in a political, governmental position, chastise them legitimately through your own judicial due process. Unbelievable. One of those biggest turnoffs. Disgusting. And I censure this 100% plus. So I'm going to be doing that, add that to it. And of course, there's a lot of other information on there on police misconduct for April. So you can, there's a link for that, so you can see it for yourselves. So you gotta give the Guardian some credit. Sometimes, it's like every newspaper has the pros and cons, but not every reporter are bad. I'll be very fair, because I remember in the past I was real critical to Miami Herald and some of their drama, but not all the writers or journalists are bad. Sometimes you get the editors try to play the drama queen to have people live in fear. But this one here, You gotta really look at the bigger picture. This is downright disgusting. So, so I'm gonna add that with the Daily Mail, so you can see it for yourselves. And wow, what I gotta say is just unbelievable. Well, this one here came from Sputnik. It's about Emmons retweeted it from Newsbuds. Came out today. And it says here, Turkey sentences 15 Cumhuriyet newspaper journalists to prison terms report. A court is in Ankara, Sputnik. A court in Istanbul sentenced 15 journalists of the Cumhuriyet opposition newspaper to various prison terms, including its chief editor, Murat Sabanugo, for their association with Islamic cleric Fethullah Gulen's movement. Sounds like they're funded by the West, the CIA, right? Referred to as the Fethullah terrorist organization, FIDO, by Ankara, a local media reporter on Wednesday. According to the NTV broadcaster, Sabanugo was sentenced to 7.5 years of imprisonment, and newspaper chairman Akin Adelaide for 8 years. Other employees received from 2.5 to 7.5 years of imprisonment. The trial against 17 Cumhuriyet journalists began last July. Most of them were arrested in November 2016 on accusations having ties to Gulen and to the Kurdish separatists. Ankara accuses Gulen of masterminding the July 2016 coup attempt to depose the president, and allegations he denies. Turkey has been seeking extradition from the United States, so they're trying to get Gulen for a long period of time. And of course, a lot of things Gulen's involved in some of the so-called radicalization schools. Early in the day, Harlem Deser, the representative of the freedom of the media of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, called on Turkey to rethink its position on journalists who were detained by the nation's authorities in the wake of the attempt coup in July 2016 and release them immediately. So, you always gotta see things a lot deeper than what it is, because there's even some of the journalists there in the past have been arrested for even mocking or criticizing the president Erdogan. And one of them did something like, supposed to be like some represents the homosexuality. I married did an article on that, and they consider that a threat. So freedom of expression and freedom of speech in Turkey is just compromised. Nothing new at all. But one of those things, my friends, how deep does the rabbit hole go? So I'm seeing a lot of cloak and daggers happening, not just in the United States, but around the world. And Turkey's just a fine example. All right. Let me just see here what's going on. Yeah, okay, cool. This one here came out yesterday for the Miami Herald, and it's in Broward County to be exact. Came out, yesterday evening. It says here, another South Florida city files suit against the state over enacting local gun laws. Howard Cohen. Wilton Manor has joined the 3 Broward cities that are recently challenged a Florida law that prohibits municipalities from enacting local gun laws in a lawsuit filed Wednesday, bringing the number of South Florida cities in the fight against the state to 14. Let's just check this out here. Everytownsearch.com. So, there's a complaint. I'm just gonna, I don't know what to do here. I'm gonna probably check out this docket for the time being, and a little bit later. And I will be to see what this whole thing's about. Boom. And I'll continue on and see what these folks have to say. That's not what I want. No. What the heck? Boom. I'll just do this again. Sorry about that. Should have done this beforehand. I'm just winging this. Yeah, that's it. Bingo. So So you know, I'm gonna talk about that a little bit. There's a link for that too, so don't even sweat it. And it says here, Wilt Mass joined the broader cities of Carl Springs, Coconut Creek, Pembroke Pines. Just filed a lawsuit earlier this month to argue that 2011 state law prohibiting cities from adopting gun control laws violate the state and federal constitution. We're gonna look at that too. I'm gonna just look at that too. Look at the state law and what they allegedly violated. I'll continue on here. In the last month, 14 South Florida cities have sued Rick Scott, who signed the NRA-backed bill into law so they enact local gun regulations. And other municipalities that have filed suits include Coral Gables, Cutler Bay, Miami Beach, Miami Gardens, Pinecrest, and South Miami in Miami-Dade, and Lauderhill, Miramar, Pompano Beach, and Weston and Broward. Current state law says that municipality is prohibited for enacting local laws pertaining to gun control. Local elected officials who defy the state could face a $5,000 personal fine and removal from office if he or she tries to enact any sort of municipal gun regulation. In addition, municipalities that thought Florida's laws can be forced to pay $100,000 fines plus legal fees. And city leaders have said that their responsibility to make sure their residents are safe from gun violence, especially in the wake of February 14th mass shootings at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High in Parkland, which left 17 people dead. Well, if you got those so-called gun control laws on a state level, okay, which is 790.06, subsection 12A, firearm free zone, and the 5-day waiting period, Broward Ordinance 18-96, 5-day working period, 5 working day period to get any firearm, including a rifle, when they claimed the so-called AR-15. So those laws didn't work, and another thing too didn't work as well was 790.065. The suspect was considered a suspect, Nicholas Cruz, was considered mentally defective, and that didn't work. So I don't know what it's about being safe here. You know? In this statement, Wilt Manor's Mayor Gary Resnick, a plaintiff in the suit, said there is simply no basis to penalize or threaten personally elected officials simply for doing what they believe is the best interest for their communities. Legislation I have proposed for Wilt Manor may save lives. It does not infringe anyone's right to own a gun. We need common sense reform, gun preemption laws. Well, sometimes common sense gun laws in good faith means we want to control. All right, and this is why must take laws off the books, because certain gun laws they have in there is considered a no-no, and these local servants need to start realizing as well. You need to start realizing you have the right. There's already laws in the books. There's already laws in the books on this matter, and why you say you're trying to make it safer. It's not going to work. Some people in those areas, those entities or institutions, want to control people. And this is why I told everyone, the police aren't obligated to protect you. And the whole thing is here, there's already laws in the books, okay, on there, 790.06, subsection 12. And let's read this lawsuit here, okay. I'm going to read this lawsuit, Civil Action Docket Case CACE 18-008664. And it's here, Dan Daly, an official capacity of Commissioner of the City of Coral Springs, Florida. Frank C. Ortiz, Mayor of Pembroke Pines. I'm just paraphrasing here. Rebecca A. Tooley, Commissioner of Coconut Creek. Gary Resnick, Mayor Forest Wilton Manors, City of Coral Springs, City of Pembroke Pines, Coconut Creek, and Wilton Manors. And amended complaint. When they talk about here, penalties, 790.33, so that they're trying to challenge that, of course. And the link's on there for the lawsuit. You can read it. So it's 42 pages long, and you can read that link yourselves. But they're talking about the words that I'm looking for words that violated here. But the whole thing is, you got to look at what they're violating. Okay, what is the state violating on the cities? And this is why you got to look at here what's their allegations. I'm looking at it right now, and it's really, and you know what the whole thing is, folks. You got to really see things in the bigger picture. That the declaratory judgments, okay. The venue pursuant statute 47. The whole thing is they want to make sure they can do these certain laws they do in Illinois. Okay, Article 4, Section 1A of the Florida Constitution provides shall care the law be faithfully executed. So that's one thing they were talking about. And it's like, oh, I like this here. Honorable Scott J. Israel sued in his official capacity as a duly elected sheriff of Broward County under Article 5. So it looks like he may be being involved. Let's see, okay, I'm going to look at this 27 here. Honorable J. Scott Israel sued in his official capacity as a duly elected sheriff of Broward County, Florida, under Article 5 of the Florida Constitution, Chapter 30 of the Florida Statute of the Sheriff. He was responsible for enforcing court orders and judgments issued by the 17th Judicial Circuit Court in for Broward County, Florida, including any fines, damages. So, let me see here. Messed up. No, sorry about that. Any fines, damages, or other judgments against local elected officials or municipality pursuant to punitive damage. Okay, so factual background, preemption law, passed a firearms preemption law declaring it was occupying a whole field of regulation of firearms and ammunition. Local orders were declared null and void. Yes, it is. I agree. So they want to bring all this back. Okay, when you read this stuff, regulate firearms, regulate ammunition. So they're going to try to tell you and people in the militia, we're going to compromise what you can do, according to this. As I'm reading so far. So I got to always read between the lines here. They want to compromise Article 10, Section 2 of the Florida Constitution as well under militias. Folks, you can just look this up yourselves. And proposed ordinances. So the whole thing is about what happened and they're going to use that whole thing with the Douglas High School, okay? But it's okay for the four deputies to stand down, and according to their manual, that's their job going in there. I could thank Judicial Watch for that. You look it up, please. That'd be great. But see, one of these areas, man, I just find it's totally mind-boggling. They don't want to compromise, but say, oh, you can own a firearm. There's nothing against we're not here to take your firearms away, but we're going to tell you what you can have, what you can't have. And sometimes these regulation and ammunition, they can be considered victimless crime referendums. So remember prohibition of alcohol during the 20s. It didn't work. Now you're going to try to bring something like this to the table, a refurbished version that originally used 100 years ago on alcohol, and it failed. So you know what? You put people, all those commissioners and mayors of all those cities, you know what? Put your head in the sand. You just officially declared your oath of office under Article 2, Section 5 of the Florida Constitution by breaching everyone in your cities you represent their basic rights under the same document of our state constitution, which is Article 1, Section 2. No excuses, no refutals. Your rhetoric, your documentation is null and void. And you claim to be lawyers? Well, you're doing a very piss poor job on doing that. So, enough said of that. Yeah, I'm just like ranting here. Forgive me, my friends. And this one here came from the 10th Amendment Center yesterday. And who originally did this? It was Robert Nadelson. Interesting here. It's entitled Unconstitutional, Extra Constitutional, What's the Difference? You've often hear that an action is constitutional or unconstitutional. More rarely, you hear terms extra constitutional. Exactly how do these words differ? An action is unconstitutional taken in accordance with governing constitution. The governing constitution may be written or unwritten. In Britain, to become law, a bill must pass through the House of Commons and usually the House of Lords, then approved by the Queen. The Prime Minister don't count. That's the constitutional procedure. An attempt to enact a law purely by passage in the House of Lords would be unconstitutional. Of course, a constitutional rule may be changed. In the 18th century, it was unconstitutional to make laws unless both House of Commons and House of Lords approved. In the 19th and 20th century, however, the rules were changed to allow lawmaking in certain circumstances without the consent of the Lords. That procedure thereby became constitutional. This same general principle applies to written constitutions. Under the U.S. Constitution, a law that has passed the House and Senate has been signed by the President as constitutional unless it is consistent with some other term of the Constitution. Like the Brady Law that was signed by President Bill Clinton in 1993, it was ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court and, of course, the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court because there's language in there breaches the 10th. So I will continue on here. A measure that is an attempt to ban free speech for all Democrats would be unconstitutional as violating the First Amendment, even if it is somehow managed to win the approval of Senate, House, and President. In our federal system, a stale measure may be constitutional under the Constitution, but unconstitutional under the basic law of the state, or vice versa. For example, nothing in the U.S. Constitution bans states from making gifts or public money to private persons or entities. As far as that document is concerned, a state legislative act making such a grant is perfectly constitutional. However, some state constitutions do contain provisions banning gifts of public money to private persons or entities. In that case, such a grant is unconstitutional at the state level, even if it's perfectly legal at the federal level. In some states with constitutional provisions of this kind, activist courts have gutted them. On the other hand, suppose a state legislature adopted a bill attainer, a legislative measure declaring a person to be a felon. If the state's constitution does not contain an express or implied ban on such measures, then it will be constitutional at the state level, but it is unconstitutional at the federal level, because the U.S. Constitution forbids the states from adopting a bill of attainder. In this instance, the federal document controls. So it's like a balance of checks and balances, you could say. Of course, an enactment also may be unconstitutional under the basic laws of both the state and federal governments. Laws of all state constitutions protect free speech. So a law banning speech by Democrats would be unconstitutional both levels. Finally, we have come to the term extra-constitutional. This refers to an action is simply outside the purview of the governing constitutions. For example, American constitutions have nothing to say about whether you must or must not wear a hat. Your decision is that subject is extra-constitutional. Some argue that it is covered by the Ninth Amendment, but I disagree for reasons outlined in my book, The Original Constitution, what it actually said it meant. Where to get that book? Here's another example. The U.S. Constitution authorizes, under certain circumstances, 3 kinds of conventions. Ad hoc meetings for specific political purposes. Article 5 authorized both a convention for proposing amendments and state conventions for ratifying proposed amendments. Article 6 authorized state conventions for ratifying the Constitution itself. Calling it by any of those gatherings in compliance with the constitutional rules is, of course, constitutional. But the U.S. Constitution does not authorize a constitutional convention. That is gathering charged with drafting and proposing an entire new basic law. If the state wished, they could call such a meeting, but doing so would be extra-constitutional. Indeed, states have done so on 2 occasions. Virginia called and 12 states staffed the 1787 Constitutional Convention outside the Articles of Confederation. And in 1861, seceding southern states called and staffed the Constitutional Convention in Montgomery, Alabama. Both those actions were extra-constitutional. Extra-constitutional action may be legal or illegal under the law of prevailing government, positive law. Deciding whether to wear a hat is both extra-constitutional and legal. Simply because the Articles of Confederation comprised a mere treaty or league rather than a true government, it was perfectly legal for the sovereign states to hold the 1787 Constitutional Convention and then set aside articles in favor of the convention's proposal. On the other hand, the U.S. Constitution rendered it illegal for the southern states to implement Montgomery's Convention's proposed constitution. Interesting right there. The right of the revolution defended in the Declaration of Independence is the American people's ultimate extra-constitutional remedy. Of course, the revolution violates the prevailing government's positive law, but as the founders recognized, sometimes a government becomes so oppressive that natural law permits the people to override positive law. That's interesting because when you read the Declaration of Independence, it talks about that. If the government comes to usurp, it's due to overthrow or start a new government. And realistically, the 6 southern states became 13 later on, separated from the United States government, the United States, to form their own nation, the Confederate States of America. I read their constitution, and it's like it has its pros and cons like everything else, and a lot of it is emulates from the original U.S. Constitution, but they just did some alterations on an anti-federalist perspective because they believed anti-federalist was more on the states, more powerful for the states. Those are one of the areas people should look at, and you know what? It is pretty cool. Hey, I recommend check his work out. I gotta do that too. It's very intriguing. I learned something today on this. It's always called checks and balances, my friend. And that's why the folks on the state level, they have an oath to protect and defend both U.S. and their state constitutions. This is why what's going on with this gun reform, trying to do it in Florida, is breaching their oath of office. Choice, they can do what they want, but don't try to dictate or say, we can't have this, can't have that, you can only get this many things. Doesn't work like that. My rights are natural born. So that supersedes all this little rhetorical, deceptive agenda. And that is it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us on social media networks. Okay. If you have any questions, comments, or you send me something that's interesting I'm going to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondences with decorum. And keep me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Minds.com, FutureNet.club, Patreon.com/Level13 with 3 eyes. If you want to be a patron, don't be awesome. Hit me at Gab, G-A-B, or gab.ai. In addition, you can email me at lookaluck3@gmail.com or the cryptic one, especially with Proton Mail. Look your luck numbers 03@protonmail.com. Oh, yeah. All right, friends. That's all for now. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.